Saturday morning. And that means it's time to catch up on the local and statewide high school sports scene. Welcome to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
Well, one half of that is right. I am Matt Hatfield, and filling in admirably, as he does from time to time, for the coach Ed Young, who is on assignment today. A very busy assignment, which his vocal cords will be getting a workout, don't worry, is the one and only, our Hall of Famer, Lynn Burke.
Good morning, Matt. Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, of HRVarsity.com, the Daily Press. I'm going to begin my campaign for you to get in any Hall of Fame that out there, and I think you're a candidate for all of them. The Hampton Roads Sports Hall of Fame, Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, and certainly the Virginia High School League Hall of Fame for your work for many years with the prep sports, so many years. And you're still involved with it because from time to time we call on you, whether it be here on ESPN Radio or on VirginiaPreps.com. And we've got some high school football playoff action to go over, Lynn. It should be a fun few days as we build up to the region championship games the day after Thanksgiving and the weekend there, as there's one of them on Saturday next week. So we had some games last night and some entertaining ball games across the region and state.
Yeah, you saw a good one, Ocean Lakes and Cox, and a bunch of other really good ones around the area.
Let's fire up the scoreboard. Thomas Simmons on the other side of the glass here as well, who you heard last night with Will Driscoll and the boys on the 757 at 6. And we'll start. Lynn, we'll go. I guess we'll start. What do you think? Go from top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
Six
to one.
All right, here we go. As Lynn just referenced, the Cox Falcons and Ocean Lakes Dolphins in the Region 6A semifinals. It was a doozy of a ball game out there at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex, and a lot of offense, folks. In fact, in the first quarter alone, I believe the count was 337 yards of offense combined by Cox and Ocean Lakes there in Virginia Beach. And it was a great start for Tavion Robinson, the 4-star Virginia Tech commit. He led the way for Cox to get out to a 28-17 lead at intermission. Listen to the numbers: 269 total yards and 4 touchdowns produced, Lynn. For some players, that'd be a good game or 2 games worth. He did it in one half.
In one half, but unfortunately, the game's 2 halves, and that's a bad cliche.
It is, and against an undefeated Ocean Lakes team that brought the defense in the second half after Robinson's 4 of 6 for 123 yards through the air, 11 rushes for 146 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground in that first half. And really the momentum changed right before the half, Lynn, as on 3rd and 3 with time ticking down, Robinson runs to his right, and Devon Allen, defensive end there for Ocean Lakes, is able to chase him down and prevent him from getting in the end zone. That would have made it 34-17, maybe 35-17 too, had Cox gotten an extra point. So Cox rushes on the field goal team, and they'd rush him on. Kick is wide, no good, so they don't even make it 31-17. Ocean Lakes dodges a bullet, and to begin the second half, onside kick. Oh, that tricky Joe Jones. Channeling his inner Sean Payton from the New Orleans Saints. They recover it. Ocean Lakes, they grab momentum. Even though Robinson has a 37-yard interception return on defense in the second half, the Dolphins get it together behind Xander Jedlick, their quarterback. He throws for 3 touchdowns, runs for another one. Tank Land, the Maryland commit, 4-star defensive back, runs in a touchdown on 3rd and goal. And Ocean Lakes comes from behind, 22 unanswered second half points. They beat Cox by a count of 32-28, which sets up. Who do you think?
The Class 6 game.
I'm sorry, not 30-28. It was 39-28. I misspoke. Go ahead.
And that sets up the Class 6 game that people probably wanted to see from day one. Ocean Lakes against Oscar Smith.
It does, as the Oscar Smith Tigers, they roared past the Lansdowne Eagles 35-3. They were down 3-0 in the first quarter of this game.
Yeah.
But
Cam Kelly got his hands on the ball.
He did. No problem for Cameron Kelly, the Auburn commit for the Tigers. He's playing for the Oscar Smith Tigers right now. He'll be playing for the Auburn Tigers in the SEC next year. 18 of 20 for 323 yards and 5 touchdown passes. A 73-yarder to Brandon Brock right before the break. Brock, by the way, has 5 touchdown catches the last 2 games. He's also spreading the ball around to Jarius Howard, Kenny Etheridge, Ramon Copeland. So if you're doing the math, that's 14 touchdowns, folks, for over 800 yards through the air the last 3 games for Cam Kelly, who, like Tavion Robinson, we were wondering a few weeks ago, would those guys play in the playoffs? Well, they not only played, they performed in the postseason.
Big time, no question about it. Of course, he's a heck of a defensive back also. Just a wonderful talent. I believe last year he was a Virginia Pilots All-Tidewater Player of the Year, and chances are he'll repeat this year.
And rather quietly, the Oscar Smith defense, since losing to Indian River 28-16, folks, they have only given up on the last 4 ball games. They have given up just 1 touchdown, a total of 16 points. A couple field goals, a safety teams have scored with, a couple of shutouts mixed in there, blanking Western Branch and Tallwood in the opening round of the playoffs. So Oscar Smith victorious last night, 35-3 over the Lancetown Eagles. It's Ocean Lakes, it's Oscar Smith. It's next Friday at Harold Hushover Field at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex. It should be a dandy of a ball game, as these two teams have met before. In fact, Lynn, this is the 6th playoff meeting since 2008. Oscar Smith leads the series 3-2.
I thought they'd played a whole bunch of times against each other. I wasn't sure it was that many. It's always a classic. And of course, with the Beach District schools really not playing much in the way of outside games during the season, you pretty much have to wait for the playoffs to match up a game like this.
This is the first out-of-district matchup for Ocean Lakes because they played Kellum in the first round and Cox. So you're right on the money there, Lynn. Best 4 out of 7. It's 3-2. Oscar Smith leads this best of 7 series with Ocean Lakes. That takes care of Class 6. We'll give you some sprinkling as the morning goes along, some state results, so who some of these teams could see in the state semifinals. But let's move on down to Class 5, Region A. Indian River, the top seed, and arguably, in many people's eyes, the best team in high school football in Hampton Roads this year. They did beat Oscar Smith 28-16 in the Chesapeake Game of the Year back in October. Well, they were down 8-0 to Nansemond River, who eliminated them a year ago after 1 quarter of play. But much like Ocean Lakes and Oscar Smith, you might have them down, but you're not going to have them down for long. It was all Braves after that, 20-8.
No, you're not. TJ Spruill, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. And Indian River now heads on to play Maury, a good one there, Maury beating Salem.
Maury and Salem, a back-and-forth battle there in Virginia Beach. Remember, Salem came in as the number 2 seed, 9-2 overall. Maury, the 3 seed, despite the better record, at 10-1 overall. And it would be Luca Weber's game-winning field goal at the very end. 24 yards is out with 4.5 seconds to go. Salem had 35 yards in penalties, 2 personal fouls on that last drive that won it for Maury. A great game for junior running back Kalon Black in defeat.
Yeah,
Go ahead, what do you have?
I could say 3 touchdowns, 204 yards rushing.
Huge game for him, Lynn, and he'll be back next year, so Salem has something to build on. But think about the heartbreak for Sean Wilson and the Sun Devils. They lost last year in the region championship in overtime on a field goal by Evan Lomax of Nansemond River. This year they lose in the region semis at home to Maury on a field goal with 4 seconds.
Well, this year Maury starts on its own 8-yard line. And thanks to all those penalties and so forth, they got all the way to the Salem 7 before Luca Weber kicked the field goal.
And there you have it. So Maury, Indian River, it'll be the Commodores and the Braves. 2 quarterbacks that can sling it. Alvante Lawton had 165 yards passing and 3 touchdowns for Maury last night. He's got Keandre Lambert out wide, as well as Deshaun Peel and some weapons. And Indian River with Dominic Brooks, the area's leading passer, and he's got a bunch of weapons. You mentioned Spruill and Rasheem Brooks and so many others that contribute. That should be a dandy of a ball game as well in Chesapeake for the Class 5 Region A title. Winner's probably going to see a team called Highland Springs. More on them later on, as the 3-time defending state champs got outgained last night in the first half by Glen Allen, but they had 4 special teams touchdowns, 4 kick punt return touchdowns in a game. I can tell you about half the teams in our area haven't had that in the season.
Also noticed on Twitter the Highland Springs JV team was maybe as dominant, if not more dominant, than Highland Springs varsity. So look at Highland Springs for the next few years. Yeah,
we had a good caller of ours confuse that a few weeks ago. So there you have it. Class 5 Region A, Indian River, Maury. Class 6 Region A, Oscar Smith, Ocean Lakes. We get the showdowns we were waiting for, and we're going to get them in Class 4 Region A as well, as it was shut down defenses Andy Lynn's Rams of Lafayette, Hank Sawyer's Titans of Lake Taylor. You're talking about two of the best coaches in the state, two of the best staffs, two of the perennial powers in our area. Lake Taylor's got a couple of state titles. They got eliminated early last year from the playoffs. Lafayette's been knocking on that door, been in championship games, state semifinals. These two have never played before, but they'll do it next Friday. I'll be there at Warner Stadium the day after Turkey Day for Lake Taylor Lafayette. The Titans breeze by Kings Fork 42-0, just suffocating defense. I believe it was it 10 sacks for that defense?
10 sacks and held Kings Fork to minus 36 rushing.
Well, I was told last night from a birdie that an LSU assistant coach was in attendance last night, and I was told to see Trayshawn Mitchell, the great defensive tackle of Kings Fork, younger brother of Taraji Mitchell, who played at Bayside and Bishop Sullivan, now at Ohio State. I wonder if he took notice of Malik Newton, the running back for Lake Taylor, a sophomore, and Akeem Wright, one of those edge rushers for Lake Taylor, a junior linebacker who almost looks like a mini Jalen Holmes for them, Lynn, on the outside there. And what can you say about Lafayette and the Rams? 49-0 over War Hill. They make it look easy week after week after week.
War Hill played them fairly close the first game, actually led at halftime during the regular season. This last night, Lafayette scores on its first drive. Then War Hill turns the ball over 4 times. All of a sudden, from 7-0, it's 35-0, and let the clock run.
516-64, Lafayette has outscored its foes. Lake Taylor has outscored its foes 555-217. So the defense has been hit a little harder for Lake Taylor. However, 2 shutouts in their last 3 games. They're playing great at the right time of the year. And Lafayette, only one team all year has held them under 26 points. That was Poquoson in the 13-3 game. So you got some great matchups with the wing tee of Lafayette, the veer of Lake Taylor. It should be an absolute classic next Friday night in Williamsburg. Go get some day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday shopping done like I'll do, and then check out an excellent football game between 2 teams that are worthy of meeting in a state championship.
Oh, absolutely, both of them. Like you said, Lake Taylor's got a couple under its belt. Lafayette has been close, but just hasn't gotten there the last few years. Andy Lynn's got an outstanding program there. Of course, Hank Sawyer the same at Lake Taylor. And
it's fairly cliche to say it, Lynn, very simple to say quarterbacks could decide a game. We don't think of that with Lake Taylor Lafayette, but maybe they could come into play. Both Jeff Foster, the sophomore for Lake Taylor, and Zach New for Lafayette. Both have been effective running and passing, and both have been sprinkled in on defense, getting some interceptions this year at defensive back. So keep an eye on them with all the running backs and physical players in the trenches and defensive guys standing up. Maybe a quarterback will decide that game with a late drive. You never know with the Rams of Lafayette and Lake Taylor. By the way, in Class 4 across the state, we'll talk a little bit more of it as time progresses. We know 3-time reigning champ Salem got beat last week, Lynn, by Jefferson Forest. Last night, game of the night, a touchdown pass at the very end. You can read about it on VirginiaPreps.com from Devin Payne, our reporter up there, as Eastern View beat Louisa in Mineral, as he called it, the Miracle in Mineral. They were down 14-13, and a 58-yard miraculous touchdown pass for Eastern View quarterback Matt Lowry, deflected twice. I showed it to you a few minutes ago, and they beat Louisa 19-14, stunning the fans at the Jungle. It was interesting to watch the clip, the aftermath. On the Eastern View side, they're just all going nuts. And on the Louisa side, where the video was shot from, it's just kind of like dead silent. Oh, it's just an incredible video. We'll actually put the link in the article, too, so if anybody wants to go check it out on VirginiaPreps.com, you can watch it as well as read about what the players and coaches said after that thriller in Mineral between Eastern View and Louisa. Eastern View undefeated at 12-0, the number 4 seed moving on. That's how good that region is, as they'll play Dinwiddie, who outlasted Monacan. And the reason it matters is because the winner of Eastern View and Dinwiddie will see the winner of Lake Taylor Lafayette in the state semis. Let's move on down, Lynn, to Class 3 Region A. Would he play? Won't he play? Will he play? Won't he play? We've asked that about Tavion Robinson of Cox, Cam Kelly of Oscar Smith, and the quarterback from Phoebus, Chris Daniels, the junior. We saw him up close and personal last year with that last-minute drive to lead the Phantoms past the Hampton Crabbers, their arch rival. He was playing last night, and the Phantoms survive it against York, a very pesky, dangerous team. Doug Pereira's Falcons, no slouch at all. They got Jake Very up front on the nose there at defensive line, and they gave him a battle, but it was Phoebus in the end, prevailing 21-13. Yeah, Chris Daniels had 2 games with a shoulder injury, comes back 8 of 14, 140 yards, had a touchdown. Anthony Turner clinched victory for them, a 40-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter, had another touchdown also. And they get to play, instead of playing Hopewell, the number 1 seed, Phoebus will play Norcom. Norcom stunned Hopewell, the defending state champion, 14-12 up at Hopewell last night. That they did. I mean, and that's the 3rd meeting between those two, Lynn. Last year, remember, last year it was Norcom winning at Hopewell. Hopewell won at Portsmouth this year, 13-0, and the Greyhounds march on.
great defense for Norcom. They scored their 14 points in the first half, held on in the second half. They stopped a 2-point conversion, I guess, halfway through the fourth quarter that would have tied the game. Then Hopewell get inside the last 30 in the last minute, and Norcom stuffed them and took the ball over. And also one of the 2 touchdowns, Ceylon Lawrence recovered a fumble in the end zone, so a great defensive game by Norcom.
And Lawrence had that big game when they beat Lake Taylor 33-13 back on October 13th on homecoming. You know, I've been the negative Nancy, the guy complaining and whining about the new playoff format. We got 0-10 teams making it 2-8 teams. The one thing I like about expanded playoffs, Lynn, is it allows a team, if you lose games early, to recover and get hot. Norcom was once upon a time 0-3 this year, battling some injuries, battling some protection issues, and they have rallied the troops. Their only loss in the last 10 or 9 games, or 8-1 in the last 9 games, was to Maury, who's playing for a region championship in Class 5. So you look at their defense, much like Lake Taylor's, it's running the form the right time here. They got Antoine Powell-Ryland, the defensive end for them back. Torres Jones is playing great at linebacker, and that's going to be a real grudge match. Norcom Phoebus, first to 7 points wins, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Norcom's the one team that's beaten Lake Taylor this year.
They are the one team, and Phoebus, they've gone around further than last year. Remember, they're a program, too. Jeremy Blunt, he's won a state championship as a player, trying to do it as a head coach with that storied tradition, 7 state titles in the trophy case from the days of Bill D. and Stan Sexton. Can he do it this year? Well, the defending champ is out in Hopewell. Now you got to take on a Norcom team that's very dangerous here. If they get through this one, I tell you what, Len, the winner of that has to love their draw, because the Region 3B champ is going to have at least 4 losses on its docket. With, you look at Culpeper's going to play the winner of today's Thomas Jefferson of Richmond versus Spotsylvania game. That's a 6-5 against a 7-4. So, not to dismiss them completely, but I think the Region 3A championship is the state semifinal game in a way.
It certainly looks that way. Yeah, that whole Region B bracket, the last 4 teams, 4 losses is the fewest losses by any of the teams.
That's unreal. Remember, you had 0-10 George with us, the 7 seed there. A 1-9 got in as well.
Yeah.
Literally only had 2 teams with a winning record to begin the playoff bracket out of 8 in Region 3B. So that takes care of 3B. Later on in the show, we'll be talking with the head football coach of the Poquoson Bull Islanders. That's Elliott Duty. His team a winner on the road up at Amelia County, 24-14. As we keep talking about defense, whether it's Oscar Smith or Lafayette or Ocean Lakes in the second half. Well, Elliott Duty's Islanders all year long, Lynn, their defense has been rock solid, giving up just 7.6 points per game. Yeah,
it was 24-14 last night, but that last touchdown for Amelia came with about 7 seconds to go in the game. So technically, it was like a 24-7 victory for Poquoson. Colton Hicks, 2 touchdowns and 145 yards. The quarterback for Amelia did throw for almost 300 yards, but only threw 1 touchdown pass.
And we'll see if Goochland can offer something in terms of a passing game. Their last 2 games, they've been through low-scoring defensive battles, which Poquoson likes. Goochland won their opening round 26-8 over Brunswick in a little bit closer than anticipated game. Then they shut out King William, a very solid King William team, 21-0. So expect another defensive battle, physical battle. Goochland and Poquoson met last year in the region final, and it was Poquoson winning that one on the road. So they're no strangers to this Bulldogs team trying to get back to the state semifinals, where the winner will await a high-scoring team any way you slice it. East Rockingham beating Buffalo Gap last night, 51-22. That was 51-6 at halftime. And the running back for Eastern View, Jawan Evans, had 164 yards on 4 carries in the first quarter alone.
That's crazy.
He's really good. Over 2,000-plus yards. In fact, we got a story coming up soon on VirginiaPreps.com about him having to go through some trials that almost didn't get on the football field with some health issues. So he's just a feel-good story for Eastern View. They've put up 51-46 in the playoffs. They'll play Central Woodstock, the Falcons, who put up 63 in their win last night over Luray, 63-21.
Yeah, just a couple of really high-scoring teams there. And if Poquoson can get through next week, it'll be one of those 2 high-scoring teams against a pretty rock-solid defense that Poquoson always plays.
The contrast of a high-flying offense against a stingy defense. You love it when you get to the playoffs and that happens. And to finish things up here in Class 1, Region A, a couple of local teams with Northumberland, West Point, Essex, Washington, and Lee. Washington and Lee, the only number 8 seed to advance in the playoffs. We saw the number 7 seed last night, the only one to advance, Lynn, get a second win in the playoffs. as it was Liberty Bedford in Region 3C beating Spotswood, then beating Western Albemarle by 3 touchdowns. Well, Washington Lee hung in there early, could not finish it off, though, as Essex comes with a strong second half, 31-6 over W&L. So the number 4 seeded Trojans of Essex with ODU commit KJ Dameron will take on number 2 seeded Northumberland, a 31-26 winner over West Point. Northumberland 31, West Point 26, setting up a Northern Neck District battle, Northumberland and Essex.
And that'll be, looks like at Northumberland, because Northumberland was the 2 seed and Essex was the 4 seed.
Yeah, and most of these championship games are on Friday next week. We will point out that the game with Phoebus and Norcom, we've been told, is going to be a 2 o'clock kick next Saturday at Darling Stadium. We give the golf clap for that and approval because I can make it over to that one now and see 2 games next weekend and maybe more, including a couple online. So there you have it. Those are the region semifinal results from around the Hampton Roads 757 area from last night. Before we go to break, give us a call at 757-687-9494 here on High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com at 757-687-9494.
Let me throw out one non-football score from yesterday, actually 2. Princess Anne girls volleyball team won the Class 5 state championship, 3 sets to none over North Stafford. They finished 29-0, only lost 4 sets the entire year.
Wow.
And unfortunately, Cox was a 3-0 loser to Chantilly in the Class 6 championship game for the girls, their second straight state runner-up.
Second year in a row they lose in the state final, but a great year for the Cox girls and the Princess Anne girls. Kudos to them winning a state championship in girls volleyball. Undefeated on the year. That's impressive. 29-0.
Lost 4 sets out of probably close to 100 sets. They lost 4.
Wow. And one other little nugget from the football results too, Lynn, last night. Eastern District went 3-0 last night.
Yeah.
Good night for the Eastern District, which for many years was considered the pushover district. They can't hang with the Peninsula, Southeastern Beach. Well, good showing for them as they've got 3 teams going for region championships with Maury in Class 5, Lake Taylor in Division 4, and Norcom in Class 3. And all have, I'd say, a fairly decent shot. They do.
Yeah, this year seemed like the Peninsula District was the one that struggled with everybody losing last week, except for Phoebus.
Yeah, Phoebus the only team to win there. And then the Beach now left with just 1 team remaining with the Ocean Lakes Dolphins. And Southeastern's got 2 potential state championship participants, I believe, in Indian River and Oscar Smith. Yeah, both could be playing in the state final. But both could very well have their hands full in the state semis should Oscar Smith have to go to Manchester or Colonial Forge, who they've had their number lately. And if Indian River has to host Highland Springs next week, or the week after next, I should say, that will be a chore because Highland Springs has got the, I think, biggest margin of victory of anybody in the state, and by a good amount.
I haven't looked at it lately, but somebody said that if Highland Springs ran a table, they had a chance to score the most points of any team in history, beating Hampton's 1996 team that scored 800 and some points in their 14 games.
They were on pace for that at one point. And one little update, you love this watching before we go to the phones here, I see our buddy Keith is waiting to talk to us with bated breath. We think bated breath. Westfield has now won 36 in a row. That's the longest winning streak in the state. They are the 3-time defending state champs in Class 6. So as we talk about Manchester and Colonial Forge and Ocean Lakes and Oscar Smith, Westfield saying, what about us? We've won 3 in a row. And they won last night 35-7 over South Lakes. The longest winning streak in the state, as you know, Phoebus had the record for consecutive VHSL wins at 52, snapped back in 2011 by Woodside, a 14-9 win for Woodside. So do the math. If they win 3 more, they'll get to 39, which means next year if they got through the state semis, or to the state semis, actually through the state semis, they'd break it. To the state semis, they would tie it undefeated. So Westfield could be in pursuit of that Phoebus record that we thought might not be touched for a while. Yeah,
of course, I'm sure Oscar Smith got a couple games to go, but they'd love to get another shot at Westfield.
They would, and I'm sure that all the fans that are saying, listen, we'll tell you about your streak and tell you where to shove that streak because we're going to beat that and knock it down. So we'll see. Westfield's got their hands full next week with Madison, who they only beat 17-15 earlier in the regular season. Let's go to the phones here at 757-687-9494. Give us a call here on High School Sports Talk at 757-687-9494. We'll put up some poll questions later on HS Sports Talk 941 to peruse as well. And we chat with the one and only Keith in Smithfield. Keith, you're on with yours truly, Matt Hatfield, and Lynn Burke.
How you doing, Lynn? How you doing, Matt? How you doing this morning?
We're doing well. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Just football, retired. I won't be back. I'm not happy to you. I won't be back at the football team next year.
Yeah, he's having a retirement. But like you, Lynn, we can make Keith come out of retirement from time to time.
Will they retire Keith's number?
I don't know. They should give you some kind of special ceremony for your loyalty and dedication to the program over there. That's my little opinion. But anyways, what's going on, Keith?
Yeah, so I won no games last night. We had a basketball game last night, scrimmage last night at Cape Henry last night.
Oh, how'd that go? Because I might be checking out Cape Henry Monday night after the 757 at 6 as they visit Lansdowne in a benefit game at 7 o'clock. DeJour Rucker, the Marshall signee for them, and Lansdowne having the JMU signee and Michael Christmas. How'd the Cape Henry Dolphins look to you?
Cape Henry got a good team. I think they can win that conference, and I think they can push it to the state.
Yeah, they got a good chance to win a private school state title. Mark Hall's built sort of a dynasty over there with what they've had, taking over for Larry Ward a few years ago, who's now the head coach at Norfolk Christian, and he's got some talent there with Rucker and Danny Bannister, who signed with Hampton University, and Christian Moore, younger brother of Ashton Moore, who played for our good friend Ed Young at Nansemond River. And you can see Cape Henry as well. Keith, put it on your calendar, January the 12th, Virginia Preps Classic at Green Run High in Virginia Beach. We won't give away the opponent because we're saving that for our special announcement selection show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. And also, coming Saturday, y'all got to come on at 6 o'clock p.m. at Surrey High School. Will be packed. Our Packers will be going up against Surrey.
All right.
On Saturday.
It'll be packed for that. You're right. That's a rivalry matchup, bringing it back there. I like what Coach Porter and Smithfield and Coach Pope, who's also the AD there at Surrey, are doing there, getting a community involved there with Surrey and Smithfield, huh?
Yeah, girls playing at 6 o'clock, the boys playing at 7:30.
All right, so it's a girls-boy double dip. All right.
Yes, sir. And also next Friday, Lafayette and Lake Taylor, they're gonna be. I think they're gonna be a shootout. They're gonna be a
shootout. You think it'll be high scoring?
They're gonna be a high score. What team making mistakes, turn the ball over, they're gonna win the ball game.
That's sound analysis. I agree with that.
Yes. So Keith, who's going to win that game?
I'm looking at we the same district. Lafayette and us in the same district, and I'm pulling for Andy Lynn. I'm pulling for him, man. And
you should, because he took a selfie with you and I about 2 years ago. So
yeah, I'm pulling for Andy Lynn. Andy Lynn out there. I'm pulling for you, Andy Lynn. Bring this is y'all year to bring it home this year.
No, Hank Sawyer's not going to send you any Christmas presents then. Now that you're not pulling for him.
Yeah, I'm pulling for Andy Lynn and then our Baby Ruth district.
Well, I understand that. I'm not telling you shouldn't. I'm just saying he's not going to send you any Christmas presents. So.
Yes, sir. And also my other pick, and then Austin Smith beating Ocean Lake.
That pick makes sense. I think that much like the Lafayette Lake Taylor game, Keith, I think we're looking at, not to be politically correct here, I think we're looking at a lot of toss-up games, to be honest with you. I think really the only game that you would say of the Lynn, tell me if I'm wrong here, that you'd say there's I think Indian River is a solid favorite over Maury. Maury's got a chance, but I think they're a solid favorite. Outside of that, looking at a lot of 50-50, 60-40 type games, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for Coastal, I think Coastal and Goochland, I think Coastal is going to be Goochland.
If they're healthy on defense, I'm curious to chat with Elliott Duty about that. They got a great chance. If they've gotten a few of those guys that have been dinged up, I believe Hunter Schmidt was one on the line that was hurt. If they're healthy now, and it seems like they're playing much better than they did against, remember, Lafayette and York back-to-back, you'll get some bruises, and it's a physical battle back-to-back there. They got a really good shot to win that game on the road, but I wouldn't sleep on Goochland's defense. It's very strong as well. Yes,
and my last pick, the Phoebus Panthers, it's beating Norfolk Greyhounds.
All right, you're going with Phoebus. You said your last pick. You didn't make one on Indian River Maury, so I'm guessing you're going Indian River?
I'm picking in the river.
All right, so no Christmas present for you from Gary McCain as well.
I want to see, if it comes in the river win, I want to see that matchup against them and Highland Springs.
You and a lot of people. That will be a packed house that Saturday, December 1st in Chesapeake. Should we get that matchup? We might try to get out there if we're able to for that. I know I'll be there one way or the other, whether I'm broadcasting live or not that day. So it should be a fun one if we get it.
Yes, sir. And y'all have a nice holiday.
You too as well.
You too.
Enjoy Thanksgiving, Keith.
Yes, sir.
Get a lot of turkey. There you go. That's the one and only Keith from Smithfield. More to do here on High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. We've got interviews with Joe Jones and Cameron Williams of the Ocean Lakes Dolphins. That'll be coming your way soon right here on your home for sports. It's ESPN Radio 94.1.
Now back to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1. Presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Here's Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
or Coach Lynn Burke, who was filling in for Coach Ed Young. You've had a whistle before and done some coaching, right, or no?
I've had a whistle just to blow the whistle, but have I coached? No.
Hey, a couple little programming notes for you before we get to an interview with one of the Ocean Lakes Dolphins standouts from last night's game. ODU football, the final home game at Foreman Field today. Our coverage beginning at 1 o'clock as the Monarchs play host to the VMI Keydets, who have some local flavor on the team, as we mentioned, with Ty and Smith out at Chesapeake, Tyreek Trotman out of Virginia Beach, Tyreek played at Lansdowne, and Smith at Indian River, and several others. Final game at Foreman Field today. You can hear that right here on ESPN Radio 94.1 with Ted Alexander, Andy Mashal, and the crew. And then on WGHAM 1310 at 2:30 this afternoon, beginning our coverage for a 3 o'clock tip of the ODU men's basketball team. Doug Ripley and Dave Twardzik in the Virgin Islands as the Monarchs play Kennesaw State in the Paradise Jam, coming off the loss yesterday to Oregon State.
Let's see, you've got a game at Foreman Field, a game in the Virgin Islands. I think Doug Ripley got the better of that deal.
He did over Ted. That's true. And one thing before we get, Thomas has a little note as well. We were talking about this too. We had him on the 757 at 6 this week. The final game in the great career of Jimmy Laycock, head football coach of William & Mary, who you had a chance to cover and talk to quite a bit, right?
It's funny. He was an assistant at Clemson, and he took the job at William & Mary. And I was in Atlanta to cover the Peach Bowl. His last game as an assistant at Clemson. Got a chance to sit down and talk to him afterwards about what he was hoping to do at William & Mary. And as I mentioned, I came across a story in the old archives a few weeks ago, and it was kind of just, he of course announced his retirement at the start of the season. Just fun to sit there and read that and reminisce, and of course realize how long ago it was and how old we're all getting.
just a classy, humble man too. Just a great guy. And read some of the coverage that David Teal, Dave Johnson, and the fellows did at the Daily Press. They did some good work on him this week, and I'm sure they'll have some great reaction from today's game. Speaking of college football, Thomas Simmons, we've got an update for the Virginia Tech Hokies, do we not?
ESPN Radio 94.1. Breaking news.
We got two breaking news. Let's get Thomas's first before I give you mine. Go ahead.
So this one's been lingering out there for a little while. Hokies fans will want to tune in for this. Virginia Tech, of course, they're at 4 wins on the year, I believe. They need 6 for bowl eligibility, which would require wins with Miami and Virginia remaining on the schedule. If they don't get to 6 wins between those 2 games, they will have an extra game. I guess I'll call it. It'll be the 12th game of the year with Marshall. That'll be played on December 1st. So the first rumor a while back was that they might play UCF if they needed a makeup game.
I wanted that too.
But the ultimate result will be Virginia Tech at 4-5 right now if they do not pick up a win against Miami and UVA. If they just get to 5 wins, not if they're still at 4. If they're still at 4, they won't bother.
They've owned UVA for years, but
if they finish, if they complete the UVA game and have 5 wins on their resume, they will on December 1st host Marshall in Blacksburg.
Okay, they'll host.
It's been about 5 years since these teams have played. In 2013, they met in a 29-21 triple overtime win for Virginia Tech. That was some Rakeem Cato era Marshall.
Yeah, that was after the Chad Pennington, Byron Leftwich days of Marshall.
And
Marshall had a conference.
That's trying to extend a long bowl streak for Virginia Tech.
Yep,
too.
25 years. Yeah. So they thought entering today, it looked like they would have to beat both Miami and UVA, both games at home. But now, Hokie fans, you just need to split your remaining 2, and you'll have an opportunity to get to 6 against Marshall.
Interesting. And Marshall has some local flavor with Jaquan Yulee, who we had on the 757 at 6, linebacker out of Indian River in Chesapeake, as well as Tavante Beckett. So there you have it. And the other breaking news item I have, high school football related, Norview's Reginald Chavis has stepped down after 1 season as the head football coach, we have learned. So Coach Chavis, we wish him the best wherever he may be headed. He was coaching before that at Smithfield, as our man Keith would know. So 1 year in the books for Reggie Chavis, and that's it. So Norview now in the market for another new head football coach. Delton Cotton was the coach before that. He's the acting athletic director, obviously, for the Pilots.
Right, yeah, and Reginald Chavis really was building a pretty nice program at Smithfield. Chose to come on over to Norfolk and coach Norview, and now be interesting to see where he lands. A pretty good coach, and like you say, Norview's looking for a coach.
Yeah, they are. They got some talent. Freshman running back Kate Allen was one of the best in the area. Got to build some of that defense back up to where it was to be one of the more competitive teams in a very good Eastern District now. A lot of young, talented running backs in that league returning. Speaking of good defenses, Ocean Lakes has it, and it showed in the second half after Tavion Robinson torched them in the first half. They said, in the second half, and we caught up with the linebacker that made 13 tackles. Cameron Williams, here's what he told us about how they made the adjustments and stopped him on ESPN Radio 94.1. All right, I'm here with one of the Ocean Lakes defenders who's key playing linebacker for the Dolphins. That's Cameron Williams as they come from behind 39-28 to defeat the Cox Falcons. Cam, what was the mood in the locker room at halftime knowing you guys were down 28-17 to a team that you beat pretty handily the first time, but you still had time to come back and win the game?
Yeah, we went at halftime. We were focused up. We know we played undisciplined the first half. We had a lot of people in the wrong places, not doing what they were supposed to, but at halftime, we came as a team, and we focused up and did what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, and I understand with Coach Jones and your defensive coordinator, Chris Ramey, they wanted you to kind of probably bottle up Tavion Robinson. How did you keep a guy who was unstoppable in the first half pretty much at bay in the second half?
It was just alignments. We had people undisciplined. We weren't in the right gaps. We weren't calling pull calls, but we fixed that second half, so locked them up.
Went from down 11 to winning by 11. What's this feel like to be playing here for all the Virginia Beach fans? Kind of a big rivalry type of game. You played them before, it was a big crowd, and now you're going to play in the region championship the day after Thanksgiving. What's your mindset right now?
It's great. It's awesome. We're going to come out next week, focus, a lot more discipline, and just come out and get our minds right next week.
13 tackles unofficially might count for you tonight. 2 for loss at the end, including the sack you had there of Robinson. Speak on your role for this defense, what the coach has asked out of you specifically.
To me, I'm a leader. I got to come in, I got to take control. I got to get everyone together, get them focused, and come together as a unit and get the stop.
What's this challenge do for you moving forward? You'll be playing Oscar Smith next week in a rematch from last year, but to battle through some adversity, you guys have dealt with that with injuries in another way this year. How have you guys hung together and been able to respond from some tough situations?
We've had a lot of adversity. We have like 6 starters out, but at the end, we're a family. We come together. We work as a unit to get the job done. So.
Last 2 for you, recruiting-wise, what schools are looking at you right now? Any offers on the table at the moment?
No offers right now. William and Mary and Bucknell is the only schools that are really looking at me right now.
What are they looking at you as a backer?
As a linebacker.
Okay. Why should they recruit you? What will be your message to schools? Why they should start getting involved with you?
I got a good work ethic. I'm coachable. I love to make plays. I'm a leader, and I can get the job done at linebacker.
And lastly, you get Oscar Smith next. I imagine that's been the team on your mind, even though you've got a beach schedule since last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We remember being on this field, them beating us. It was tough. Our seniors, they were really hurt, and we're coming out for revenge next week. So
well, it should be a great battle with the Dolphins of Ocean Lakes and Oscar Smith here. Thanks so much. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
So that was Ocean Lakes linebacker Cameron Williams, 13 tackles last night, Lynn, as the Dolphins defeat the Cox Falcons, coming from behind 39-28 last night. Moving on to play Oscar Smith before we go to break and talk with I believe we got Kickingham basketball coach Willie Gauze about their event coming up in a couple weeks as the hoop season is upon us, Lynn. 13 tackles, no offers yet. It sounds like there's a sleeper out there in the 7-5-7 for football.
It certainly does. Of course, William Mary's going to have a new coach next year and probably a different recruiting philosophy. It sounds like he'd be a good one to snap up.
It would be for sure. That's Lynn Burke, formerly of the Daily Press and HRVarsity.com, with us filling in for the coach Ed Young. I'm Matt Hatfield, and when we return, we will be chatting about the Howard White Classic. It's 2 weeks away. Goodness, basketball's almost here at Kickingham High School, and Coach Willie Gauze, Coach G of the Kickingham Warriors, will join us next right here on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Recapping another busy week of prep sports, it's High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Back here on High School Sports Talk with Lynn Burke, filling in for the coach Ed Young. I am Matt Hatfield, and we have a special guest on the line. He is the head boys basketball coach at Kickingham High School, coming off a regional playoff appearance in that very tough, vaunted Class 5 field there, Lynn, and it's the 8th annual Howard White Hoops Basketball Classic coming in 2 weeks at Kickingham High School. Some girls and boys basketball action. We say good morning to Coach Willie Gauze. Coach, how you doing out there?
Good morning, Matt. How are you doing? How you doing, man? Good
doing well. We've got Lynn filling in for Ed, and you know how Ed always likes to give you grief whenever he sees you. Oh, Willie, you're too busy trying to find a 6'7" or a 6'9" or some kid that can play and bring onto your team. I think Ed's out there trying to find. He's a slick guy. I think he's probably doing that, don't you?
Yeah, I saw Ed the other day putting in alarm systems for houses passing out Nancy River. Hansman River shirt. So I ain't mad at him though, man. Everybody's got to grind to
See, he passes out all these shirts, Willie, and I didn't get anything from Coach. I mean, I've known him all these years, been one of his best friends. He doesn't give me a thing. I mean, what's up with that?
Listen, don't worry about it, Matt. You know I'm always going to take care of you.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'll don some Kickatangri any day. Here we go. We got before we get to your team, Willie, tell us about the Howard White Classic. This is the 8th year having it at the Cave there at Kickintan High School. Fill the folks in a little bit of the background of it and this prestigious event.
Yes, it's the, like you said before, it's the 8th annual Howard White Classic. It's a tournament that is held in honor of Mr. Howard White, who is now the vice president of Brand Jordan, who is one of our proud alumnus here at Kickintan High School. And so we just do it every year just to just pay homage to him and for his works and his success. And it also is one of the marquee events that we bring to the 757 area. We try to model it after the Virginia Preps Classic. So we match up 757, the Peninsula versus Southside. So this year we have a great slate of games. We have the Kickintan girls, the Hickory girls, bringing back a couple of our former assistants and head coaches, and Coach Bell, Kevin Bell from Phoebus, and Kevin Williams from Lafayette. And then we have some newcomers this year, bringing in Salem and WCA. Granby's coming with their highly talented team, and then I get to play my brother from another mother, Leon Gooseby, the Phil Jackson of high school. Him and his Norcom Greyhounds will play them in the marquee game. So great event. Hope everyone can come out and just celebrate, a great man and great basketball.
Yeah, that Goolsby fellow's up to what? 6 state titles, 8 state titles? I've lost count at this point.
Yeah, I stopped counting too. I think he ran out of fingers, and so we just stopped counting.
Chatting here with Willie Gauze, head boys basketball coach of Kickintan High School here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. Again, 5 games coming up on December 1st. That's 2 weeks from today on a Saturday to get your basketball fix in, beginning at noon with Kickintan Hickory girls, followed by Lafayette and Phoebus girls at 1:30. Salem and Jamestown boys, 3:30. You got Granby Williamsburg Christian 5. Kickintan Norcom boys at 6:30. Some excellent basketball action. What's the ticket price and admission situation there?
It's $10. $10
Okay.
a ticket. So you come in at 12 and pay $10 and see all the games you want. It's $5 for students, and those that you can keep in your lap can come in for free, as long as they yell for Kickintan.
So, in other words, if I come in and sit in Matt's lap, I get in for free.
Oh, yeah. Listen, you can get in for free, and I'm going to take that picture. We're going to blow it up. Yeah, that is bonding at its highest level.
Well, and for Howard White's been your celebrity signing oftentimes at the event. Tell me, is he planning to be there? I know he lives. Is it Oregon he lives in right now, or?
Yes, Mr. White. Well, he usually comes in. He used to be here like that Wednesday. Mr. White is always a fixture, so he'll be here. We're looking, I think, Ricardo Radcliffe is supposed to come to be here. We have the mayor and things of that nature. So it's always a star-studded event. Mr. White is always here. And the one unique thing about Mr. White is he will come in and we used to have a JV game that we featured at 10 o'clock. He will come at 10 o'clock and watch the JV game and just stay all day long. So he's just that type of guy. If you don't know him, if you don't Google him and see his picture before you get here, you'll never know who he is, because he's walking around, he's sitting in the stands, he's talking to people, he's shaking hands. He's just a real humble guy. And that's, more the reason why we want to celebrate his success, especially being here from Kickintan High School. It just gives just inspiration to all of the young men that if they work hard, that they can reach their goals, not only on the floor, but also off of basketball, off of the court. Mr. White was a great player, but due to an injury, he couldn't continue his playing career. But then he found a way to be a billionaire off the court.
You mentioned Ricardo Ratliff also. Is he still playing overseas?
Yes, he's overseas now. We've been so blessed. I was telling the young men yesterday we have Ricardo Ratcliffe that's overseas. We have Macho De Jesus that's over in Puerto Rico. We have Brandon Tabb, Rodney Bullock, and we have Greg Alexander, who's all overseas playing professional basketball. That came right here from the K.
Yeah, between you and Ivan Thomas, the former head coach there, you were on his staff, and then you took over after coach at Kickinton, now at Providence. You guys have built a nice little run of college prospects and now professional players, it looks like, there at Kickinton High School. So that leads us into this. What's the 2018-19 version of the Warriors looking like?
Great bunch of young men. We're going to be fairly young. People say it's a rebuilding year. I don't look at it as a rebuilding year. I just look at it as the legacy continues. Got some young men that have been in our program since they were like seventh graders, been playing together on the AAU circuit, eighth graders, and now they're going to take the reins. So we'll have maybe three to four seniors, and then the rest are some young guns that are coming up. But we're going to have a couple surprises. Don't want to let too much out the bag soon, so I will give the political answer that we're just going to come out and try to be the best team that we can be.
Well, who are some of the players you're going to count on this year?
Everybody that puts a jersey on.
Oh, that's spreading the wealth. So is the Peninsula District going to be as competitive as it always is?
Listen, I tell people the PD is going to be like the ACC. We have some great players, man. Woodside has some great players. You got Alan Struthers over at Mitchville. Kickinton, we have some great players. Bethel has some good players. You know, right down the road, Coach James Daniels is always going to have some players. It's going to be some exciting basketball this year. A lot of the teams have a lot of youngsters, so it's not a lot of seniors that are going to be playing. So it's a lot of young talent that's going to be around for a couple of years. But it's going to be some great games. It's going to be very exciting. It's been very exciting at Matt, as you know, and Lynn, I think also you've seen how the fall league went, the very exciting games. So it's going to be an exciting time. I believe that the basketball fever is back on the peninsula. It was kind of down for a couple of years, but it's definitely going to be back this year.
See, I know why he's not giving out the names, because he knows Ed Young is listening as he's giving out those alarms he's selling in Suffolk. He wants to get that name of that freshman guard who's going to be dynamite for the Warriors this year, who could be the next big thing. So just whisper it into the microphone, Coach. Just whisper it in.
Come on, Matt. I don't know. I think I saw you were talking something about. I think it's DeJuan Campbell. I think that's his name.
Okay.
I think I read that or something like that. But he's a great young man. We have two returning starters with Monte Williams and Jeremiah Foster. We got some size this year with kid Amarion Wilson and Jason Harris and Edward Wilson. We got another returning senior. We call him Tay. Can't pronounce his real name, but we call him Teo.
Listen, that's all right. You can have nicknames just like the football coaches do. Like, when Mike Smith at Hampton and Hank Sawyer at Lake Shore, they do nicknames, so you can do nicknames too, just like they do.
Oh, yeah. They all got nicknames. Light Bright, Can't Get Right, Professor. I got a coach on the floor, and I got a kid that's in calculus. So he's the smartest guy, so we call him Professor. So just a great bunch of young men. They really bought in. It's amazing. We played over 50 games this summer. So the JV coach from last year was going to be the head varsity assistant coach, Dwayne Campbell. Put in a lot of work this summer, a lot of work in the gym, just working these guys out and getting them prepared. So through his efforts and through their love and passion of basketball, I believe this year the product that's going to come out of the Kickinton basketball factory is going to be very exciting.
Well, it should be excellent basketball, always with the rivalry games, too, especially in the city of Hampton with Kickingham, Phoebus, Hampton, Bethel. And the Newport News schools are certainly making some noise, too, with some young coaches over there with Woodside and Stephon Welsh and Nick Chambly at Denby and Menchville under Coach Struthers and his son, Alan, going to be a playmaker to watch for, and Heritage with a new coach and Lou Radford. So the PD, definitely no shortage of talent there, even though there's a lot of youngsters there. And make sure you make your stop on December the 1st to the Howard White Classic. Again, a lot of games going on that day, 2 weeks from today, as you have 5 matchups, a couple of girls' games with Kickingham, Hickory, and Lafayette Phoebus. Following that, it'll be the boys' matchups with Salem, Jamestown, Granby, WCA, and Kickingham, Norcom to finish things off that night at 6:30 p.m. $10 admission for the Howard White Classic coming up. Coach, we appreciate the time. I'm sure we'll be in touch, and enjoy your Thanksgiving week.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank y'all for everything you do. I mean that wholeheartedly. You and Lynn as well, and Coach Young. You guys do a lot of things undercover and behind the scenes with covering and keeping us abreast. So we really, really appreciate it. And if you all are not busy, y'all come on by on December 1st, and we'll let you take a picture with Mr. White, and I'll sign it for you. And we could just sit back and have a good time.
That sounds like a plan. Thank you so much, Coach. We'll be in touch.
All right, man. Take care.
You got it. That is Coach Willie Gauze with us here from the Kickingham Warriors basketball program on ESPN Radio 94.1, the 8th annual Howard White Hoops Classic coming up on Saturday, December the 1st.
You know, think of the Peninsula District with Nick Chambly, with Lou Radford, Stephon Welsh. You got a pretty good all-star team of former players as now coaches.
Yeah, I used to just, say no big deal when you'd say I covered that guy when he played. I covered those guys when they played, so I'm getting old now. I covered all those guys when they played. Chambly at Hampton and Radford, Heritage, Welsh when he won back-to-back state titles at Woodside. I'm getting old, Lynn.
I just missed Howard White. I think he graduated in '69, and I came to the paper in '70. So I missed seeing him play, but I've seen a whole bunch of really outstanding Kickingham basketball players over the years.
Yeah, and he's a treasure from this area. One of the
really
almost sometimes forgotten about, but shouldn't be. If you call him 757 legends that we've had here, what he's done with Nike and even things outside of just basketball. He's just a tremendous man.
There's a guy that belongs in Halls of Fame.
Yes, for sure. I think he's going to get there. Maybe we can put you and him in the same class. That'd be awesome. I'd go to that. When we come back, we got more high school football talk coming your way, including Joe Jones of the Ocean Lakes Dolphins. Elliot Duty of Pocosin will join us too. Give us a call. We want to hear from you at 757-687-9494. I saw a couple of callers lighting it up there when we had Coach Gauze on, but we got some time now for give us a call back at 757-687-9494 on ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Hour 1 in the books on this Saturday morning, the 17th of November. Glad you are with us here on the final Saturday before Thanksgiving on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com with Lynn Burke, filling in for the Coach Ed Young. I am Matt Hatfield, and we'll have an interview in just a moment here with Ocean Lakes head football coach Joe Jones. We thank Willie Gauze from the Kickingham boys basketball program for coming on last segment. He has got the Howard White Classic coming up on Saturday, December the 1st. Get your hoops fix in on state semifinal football weekend that weekend. And we also thank Cameron Williams of the Ocean Lakes Dolphins defense. 13 tackles the linebacker had in their comeback win over Cox last night. And we'll tackle some of the potential Class 6, Class 5 state matchups here in just a moment, Lynn. But a lot going on this weekend. It's a busy weekend. You got, like we said, ODU football, final home game at Foreman Field, final game period for Jimmy Laycock as head football coach of William and Mary. Some outstanding college football action all day long. Some great college basketball action. How about Radford beating Notre Dame the other night in college hoops?
That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I mean, it seems like just yesterday we were interviewing Travis Fields. You remember it, of Norcom, after he hit that game-winning shot a couple years ago in the state finals, and he's scoring for Radford on the court. But we caught up with the head football coach of the Ocean Lakes Dolphins, a proud Hokie who can now root for Tavion Robinson next year. We're talking about Joe Jones. Here's what he told us after that thrilling comeback win over Cox on ESPN Radio 94.1. All right, I'm here with Ocean Lakes head football coach Joe Jones, his team with a thrilling comeback win tonight here at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex, 39-28 over the Cox Falcons as they move on to the regional championship game, which looks to be here next week against Oscar Smith. Coach, you're 12-0. How's this feel to come from down 11 to the dynamic Tavion Robinson and the Cox Falcons, who had your number in the first half, but your defense shut them down in the second half?
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, they came out. There was a track meet. I told the official end of the first quarter, you might need to change shoes. You're going to wear them out. Man, what a game. What a game. And yeah, started out a couple broken plays for each team, 7-7, and I didn't know if we were going to be able to stop him because he is so dynamic. But my hat's off, first of all, to Cox and to him and their team on a great season. And you know, they had a great game plan and played well. Guys played hard. And, you know, halftime we just kind of challenged our guys to, are we ready to hang it up? Or do we want to keep playing? I told them all along, each week you go, it's the will to win is more and more important. And, you know, second half, didn't make a lot of adjustments other than just doing our jobs, doing what they're coached to do, and tackling. And, you know, that was huge. Offensively, we felt pretty good, you know, 17 points first half, with 22 points the second half. So, you know, we felt we were able to move the ball and do some things. And, you know, Xander, man, he keeps plays going with his feet. And
stood out of a couple sacks tonight. And then when one where he was down, he extended it with his feet, like you said.
Yeah. So he, a little Ben Roethlisberger there.
No doubt about it. For you, knowing that what your defense can do, to have a first quarter where it was 337 yards, was just a matter of getting a tempo at your place, because they had an onside kick first half, and then you opened it up with the second half. Was that something you had thought about there? We got to get momentum back?
Yeah, we talked about that at halftime, and we planned it, and I tell you, couldn't have executed any better. We saw with the previous couple kicks we had that we thought it was there, and we practice that a lot. We spend a lot of time on special teams every day. Yeah. Different special teams, and because we feel that's so important. And, you know, and then we got it, had a good drive, and had the deflected, dropped the ball, and it deflected into Nine's hands. The ball just keeps going to him. And but we just keep plugging away, man. These guys have been resilient all year, and these guys have embraced the challenge in front of them, and you know, they just don't give up. They don't want to stop.
I think battling adversity was no issue for your team because you've had so many injuries. You've overcome those this year, including on the offensive line, and obviously Jake Lowe going down. But I want to speak on the defense. You know, had so many different guys get a hat to the football. One stood out to me. He's been doing it all year. It's Cameron Williams, unofficially with 13 tackles tonight. And schools in that level are probably sleeping on this kid, right?
You know, he had 23 last week against Kellum. He led the area with 104 in the regular season. Yeah. And I told, I think you and everybody who would listen, Andy Hilton and all the college coaches, I said, this guy's, he's the real deal. He can play. He's a football player. He is just a good old school, you know, rock'em sock'em football player. You know, nobody knew a lot about him because he moved here from Mississippi. Family's military, and they moved here from Mississippi. And he came in last year and just kind of learned everything and put on about 15 pounds, 20 pounds this off season and worked his butt off. And yeah, I told coaches, I said he's the sleeper. So we're I'm taking him. We're going to ODU tomorrow.
Okay, see the last home game
with he and Xander and Sean Hamilton.
And you've moved him around too. He's played some DN, some outside backer. Now I think middle linebacker for you on defense. He's played a different.
He's mainly a middle linebacker, inside linebacker, but coach moves him around, and he's just a football player, man. He's a Chicago Bear middle linebacker.
Oh, those type of throwbacks. Love those. A couple more for you. And one guy who doesn't need any help with recruiting. He's already committed to Maryland as a 4-star, big-time player. Tank Landfree. It feels like, and speaking with Xander as well after the game, that your offense has been able to throw the ball before with Xander.
Right.
When Jake got hurt, and Eli's done a great job running the ball and catching out the backfield, as he showed tonight, your offense kind of morphed from a run to a throw offense. And tonight you used some wrinkles moving Tank in the backfield and catching the ball, using him in a lot of different ways.
And we've practiced that a lot the last few weeks and just been waiting for, it's playoff time. And we want to try to get our guys the ball in space when we can. And, I think last week we looked after the game, we're averaging like 167 yards passing and 168 rushing or something like that.
Pretty good balance.
50-50. So, but Eli has just stepped up big time at running back, has 2 big games now. And, they shut us down in some runs, but we just keep plugging away. We got some new guys on the offensive line because some guys got banged up the last 2 weeks, and we just keep going.
Yeah, and Snowden got stronger as the game went along. Yeah. Okay, so you don't have to worry about defending that Robinson guy. Now you can root for him as a Hokie. He's going to Virginia Tech.
I told him after the game, man, I said, I'm so glad that he's a hell of a player.
Yes.
And I said, I'm so glad that now, once you sign on that dotted line, you're family with me for life, and I can't wait to watch you play now.
Well, this is, I believe, a region championship opportunity for you against an Oscar Smith team that eliminated you last year. You were so close to getting them a couple times at Kings Fork. Chance to get them in the region championship looks like it's going to be here. Your thoughts on that match and what you got to do to beat them, because they're a really well-rounded football team.
Oh, yes, they are. And, I mean, we go from Tavion Robinson to Cam Kelly. And so there's no difference there. And I got to watch them play a little bit at the end of the Kings Fork game in the second quarter and third quarter, and you know, they're typical Oscar Smith. They're a mentally tough team. They're a physical team. They're an athletic team, and Cam does a hell of a job at quarterback. I mean, he throws the ball, puts it on the money. He can run it. You know, we're going to see the same type of quarterback next week, just in a different offensive scheme.
Well, it should be a fun one the day after Turkey Day in Virginia
Absolutely.
Beach, Ocean Lakes, and Oscar Smith.
My favorite practice is Thanksgiving morning, baby.
Go get some food, and we'll see you then.
Absolutely.
That was Joe Jones, Victoria's head football coach of the Ocean Lakes Dolphins and a Coach of the Year candidate for sure. Lynn, 12-0 on the season as they rally from 11 down to beat Cox by 11, 39-28 at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex in the regional semifinals last night to set up their regional championship matchup on Friday at the Sportsplex in Virginia Beach. Ocean Lakes, Oscar Smith. It's High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com. You're on ESPN Radio 94.1. Give us a call at 757-687-9494 to talk some high school sports, high school football, and anything sports related with us this morning here on ESPN Radio 94.1, 757-687-9494. He comes off, if you don't know Joe Jones, and we know him well, and he is really likable, he comes off as just a likable guy, easy to root for, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And it's nice to see him tell Tavion Robinson that once you sign, you know, you're with me for life.
Yeah, now he doesn't worry about stopping him. And and I say easy to like and root for unless you're an Oscar Smith fan, because you're rooting for your Tigers next week. This is an interesting game here, Lynn. We mentioned before this will be the I think the sixth matchup, 3-2. Smith leads the series. Scott Johnson at the helm of Oscar Smith, and got a great defense right now. Cam Kelly's going to pose some problems. And I wonder about the health of Ocean Lakes. They were missing two starters last night on the offensive line, and Cox did get some pressure. They were able to sack Xander Jetlick, the quarterback of Ocean Lakes, 4 times and get some heat on him. I mean, you know, Oscar Smith's going to bring some pressure in the blitz, and they're going to have to block those guys for a full 48 minutes.
Yeah, and at this point of the year, you know, people are beating up little things turned into bigger things, like you say, with Ocean Lakes having people out. There's not a lot of time to recover, and this is a weird week because of the Thanksgiving holiday, so forth coming up. So, you know, it's probably if there was one game people were looking forward to in Hampton Roads when the football season started, it would have been this matchup, and now we have it.
It's a good point. That's been the case for several years lately, and this might be a game where you miss Jake Lowe, both sides of the ball, running back, linebacker. Ocean Lakes is good enough to win this game. I would give the edge to Oscar Smith, and I might not have given him the edge about 4 or 5 weeks ago. The way Cam Kelly's throwing the football really opens things up for him. And Ocean Lakes' offense has kind of morphed from being, you know, so run-based under, you know, Joe Jones. That's his background, being an old college football player at Virginia Tech, played in the NFL briefly. Now they're more pass-first to set up the run.
Like he says, their stats look like they're really, really well balanced.
They are, and Smith has some balance too. This is a really intriguing matchup, and you know, as it is with every game, turnovers are going to tell a lot of the story, and maybe a special teams play could swing things. You never know if they try an onside kick against the Tigers. They got to work, or we get a block punt. Let's chat about I think the Class 4 final at 757-687-9494. Calling in to talk with us is Barry in Smithfield. Barry, you're on ESPN Radio. What's going on?
Morning, guys. I'm kind of behind listening to y'all, so y'all might have already talked about it. But first, I want to say, I remember old Joe Jones when he was over in Smithfield years ago. So, man, he's a great guy. I'm glad he's still in the area coaching high school ball. So, nice to hear him on the radio this morning.
Absolutely.
And then 2 different styles, of course. You probably talked about it, but a lot of people think Lafayette might get Lake Taylor because of their discipline, their coaching, and their style. And I just wonder what you guys thought about it.
Well, I definitely think, Barry, thanks for the call. They can, and they are very well disciplined and excellent coach team. Let's not sell short Lake Taylor's discipline and coaching too. Hank Sawyer's got a couple of state championships. It's sort of an organized chaos. It's a different style you met, and different cultures over there. I think that's something that's also fascinating to me is they're both. It's a kind of a culture adjustment for both Lake Taylor playing Lafayette and Lafayette playing Lake Taylor. So they've never played before. To me, I'll be completely honest, Lynn. I think that the discipline and coaching is a wash. When you get two programs of this elite level, and I'm not just trying to take the easy way out, I think it's a wash. I think you're looking at this is going to be decided on, obviously we said before, fewest mistakes in a game is going to win it. Who can kind of get momentum early. I think a faster pace favors Lake Taylor. A grinded out pace style may favor Lafayette. What do you think?
I think the same thing, that Lafayette's always been a grinded out team. If for some reason they were to get a couple touchdowns behind, it'd probably be very, very difficult for them. The thing I like about this matchup is, up to several years ago, you would have never seen a Lake Taylor Lafayette matchup because of the way the playoffs are structured. But I've been critical of a lot of things that VHSL has done with trying to move things around and change things. But I like the playoffs where you play within your own enrollment, so you get a matchup with a Lake Taylor against a Lafayette, or a Phoebus against a York. I'd love to see a Phoebus Lafayette matchup, but
you get it next year because Lafayette goes on to Class 3.
That's right, Lafayette goes down to 3.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about it before. Lafayette with always the great defensive standouts. Jack Irwin is now at William & Mary. Armani Burden is at Hampton University. You wondered about, and this year they have two tremendous linebackers in Trey Kennedy and Josh Coley. I want to see them tackle or try to tackle Malik Newton, who just runs like a bull every time. That's going to be the compelling thing for me to watch that. And then conversely, Lake Taylor's defense so aggressive against that wing T. Barry brings up a good point. They are a very deliberate, disciplined team. So you're going to see, I think it's going to be both teams who can impose their will on the other. I'm not so sure it'll be easy for Lake Taylor to impose its will on Lafayette, or for Lafayette to impose some of its strengths on Lake Taylor, because both have the ability to neutralize the other's strengths. So what do you have in the bag as option 3, 4, 5 to try to win this game?
It'd drive fans and coaches of both teams nuts, but I'd love to see it come down to the last couple of minutes and see somebody come out on top. Who, I don't know. If you pick one, I'll pick the other.
Listen, and I'm one, you know how we are in the media business, we don't want overtimes. That's a game where, especially this time of year, regional championship, I'd be completely content with overtime between those two. Let it come down to 4 quarters, it's even. And that's really how these teams have looked when you look at the numbers, even all year. Let's have one of those overtime classics, because we're kind of due for one of those. I thought we might get it last night for a little bit there with Cox and Ocean Lakes, and we could be due for that with Lake Taylor Lafayette. It comes down to a last-second kick or something. And remember, both are familiar with it, especially in Lake Taylor's case. They get to the state championship this year. It looks like it'll be at Liberty University. Last time they were there, it was a place not too kind to them, losing in a heartbreaking double OT to Salem, who they blew out back in 2014. They lost that in 2015. And Lafayette, trying to get a step further after losing last year to Louisa in the state semis on the road, had a great comeback, come up short against a very good Lions team. So these two teams well-versed in playoff battles and what you have to do scheme-wise and strategy-wise to win it. When we return, we'll talk to another guy who's well-versed in strategy when it comes to playoff time. We're talking about Elliott Duty. He knows what it takes to win a championship. His team got to the state semis last year and lost to Robert E. Lee. Can they get back this year? We'll tackle his team's matchup with Goochland coming up next week and review last night's win over Amelia, coming your way on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com, only on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Now back to High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1, presented by VirginiaPreps.com. Here's Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young.
Well, Matt Hatfield's here, but we have filling in for the Coach Ed Young, the longtime Daily Press reporter, occasional fill-in here on ESPN Radio and on VirginiaPreps.com. Our man Lynn Burke sitting in for the coach, and we have a special guest, Lynn, on the line. He is the head football coach of the Poquoson Islanders. Good win last night as they improved their mark to 9-3 overall, defeating Amelia on the road 24-14 to set up their Class 2 Region A championship matchup next week with undefeated Goochland. We're talking about Coach Elliott Duty. Coach, congrats on the win last night. Thanks for joining us. How you been?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Well, our pleasure. Let's start there. The win last night, 24-14 over Amelia. You guys had a couple of hard-fought games in the Bay Rivers District to close out the regular season with the likes of Lafayette and York. But back here in the playoffs now, looks like you're getting a little bit healthier. 44-6 over Nottoway, and then last night a great effort, 24-14 over Amelia.
Yeah, we had some kids banged up against Lafayette, and it's taken them a couple of weeks to get back to 100%. But last night was the first game we've had all our guys back healthy, and they played real well.
Who were some of the main ones you got back from injury, and what their contributions have been for you?
One is our middle linebacker, Max Barrett. He was second-team All-State last year, so we missed him a lot for a couple of weeks. He's battling an ankle injury, and he's back, not quite 100%, but he's moving around a lot better. I think a couple more days of rest, and he'll be ready to really go this Friday. The other one is a defensive tackle, Porter Dowdy. He's our size. We're not a real big team, but Porter's a good-sized kid, plays defensive tackle for us. So he gives us some size in there, takes up some space. So getting those two guys back healthy was a big compliment last night.
Sounded like from the write-up I read that the Amelia quarterback threw for a whole bunch of yards, but you did a pretty good job of keeping him out of the end zone.
He did. We bent a little bit. We gave up some yardage. They've got two great receivers, two real tall, athletic kids on the outside, and they got the ball to them in space, and they made some plays. But we were beneficial enough to make some plays when we needed it. We got a couple interceptions when we needed them, and kept them out of the end zone for the most part. They scored right before the half on a big play, but for the most part, defense played really well.
Then I guess they scored their last touchdown with just a few seconds left, so essentially held them to a touchdown. Yeah.
I think the last one was with 5 seconds left on the clock. So we played really well defensively. We contained the quarterback. We got some rush on him. A lot of their stuff was quick game, 3-step. So he was getting the ball out quick, but put some pressure on our guys. But like I said, we got 2 picks when we needed them, and they played really well.
Coach, before we get to some of your players and look ahead to next week's matchup with Goochland, we're chatting with Elliott Duty, head football coach of the Poquoson Islanders here on ESPN Radio 94.1. It's high school sports talk. You guys playing in the Bay Rivers district teams such as Lafayette and Smithfield and York, and your one out of district matchup was Southampton, with Amelia being sort of a pass-first style team, it sounds like. Was there anybody that you could compare them to during the season, or not really from what you saw on film there and playing them last night?
The scheme-wise, athleticism-wise, I would kind of compare them to a Smithfield.
Okay.
They got athletes all over the field and try to get their guys the ball in space. Probably in our district, probably most comparable to Smithfield.
Okay, fair there. And looking at this year coming in, there was certainly high expectations getting to the state semifinals. Last year, losing a tough one to Robert E. Lee of Stanton, bringing back so many key pieces such as Hunter Schmidt and Max Barrett, Colton Hicks, and others. Give me sort of your assessment of the season now, looking back at it. I know you got a game coming up here, but have things gone the way you've expected? Sort of give me your report card of the year.
We play in a very competitive district, so I think that prepares us for the year. Once we get into the playoffs. But I guess the main goal is to be healthy by the time we get to the playoffs. And we weren't quite there against Nottoway, but last night was better. And I think by next Friday we'll be almost 100%. So the year has gone kind of like I expected. We lost a couple of tough games. And then we played Lafayette really tough. The young men really stepped up that day against Lafayette and just play with a lot of heart and a lot of enthusiasm. So I think those battles throughout our district have prepared us for the tough games against Amelia and Goochland and hopefully on down the road.
Have you looked at Goochland at all? Of course, I think you played them last year.
We did. We played them last year in the regional finals. They're kind of a mirror of us. They run the same offense, a lot of the same plays. It should be a really good football game.
Will that game be at Goochland?
That I'm not sure of yet. I think it will be Friday night, but I have not been told where it'll be. Of course, Goochland didn't play on their field this past Friday, so I'm not real sure yet where we'll go next week.
So we'll keep an eye on that. And they obviously elevated their head coach, Alex Fruth, from the offensive coordinator spot there, taking over for Joe Fowler. Team-wise, they look and sound pretty much same as you guys, defensive-driven. Is that sort of your opinion of them right now?
Yeah, I think so. Watching film on them against Amelia, very, very much good defense. We're going to have to do our thing, hold on to the football, maximize time of possession, and cash in for points when we get a chance to.
Chatting with Elliott Duty, he's the head football coach of the Poquoson Islanders here on High School Sports Talk, presented by VirginiaPreps.com on ESPN Radio 94.1. Won a state championship 8 years ago in 2010. Lynn was there to see it, 23-17 over Richlands, trying to do another state championship run here after losing last year in the state semifinals. The Islanders at 9-3 overall. And, Coach, as we look at your football team, tell us about some of the main contributors, offense, defense, and what their opportunities are, especially the seniors, for the next level.
Well, like I said, it starts with our defense, but offensively we've been led by a good stable of running backs. We don't feature just one. But we've got several good ones. Colton Hicks, of course, is having a very good year running back. He had around 140 yards last night on 22 carries. But he kind of gets us going. Bailey Green's done a great job at running back for us this year. And then since Max has been hurt, Max is our typical fullback, but we've had some guys step up. Noah Hunter's done a great job for us at running back. We're not afraid we have a lot of confidence in him and not afraid to give him the ball. And then our quarterback's done a good job of managing our game. We don't ask him to throw the ball a whole lot, but when he does get his chance, he's been hitting some balls. He had a touchdown pass last week against Nottoway, and then he had another touchdown pass against Amelia last night. So Stephen Parker's done a very good job for us at quarterback. And then, of course, it all starts with our offensive line up front. They're playing well right now. They couple new pieces at the beginning of the year, but we've kind of gelled at the right time, I think. Last night we had a couple real long drives. I think one was a 96, 97-yard drive. So we've been able to hold on to the football, and that's playoff time. That's kind of your best defense, is holding on to the football. On the defensive side, we've played well all year on defense, and of course the center is pretty much around Max and Colton. Those are our leaders. And, of course, up front, Hunter Schmidt's had a great year at defensive end for us. He had a couple sacks last week against Nottoway. He blocked a couple punts last week against Nottoway. So we're playing real well right now on defense. Porter coming back at defensive tackle. That's really a boost to us. So by far, right now probably our strength is our defense, and hopefully that can carry us a ways.
The one thing I've always noticed about Poquoson is just a solid program. Is it a help to have pretty much from the young kids up all contained right there in the one city?
I think so. We have 2 youth programs down here, and those are our feeder programs, and they both do very well. They're actually Super Bowl today, and we got a couple of our teams playing against each other. So that's a great feeder program for us. We get kids that come out and they're taught the fundamentals and they kind of come up through the system, and then we get them in the JV and then eventually up in our program on the varsity, and it's just worked really well for us.
Now, how long have you been at Smithfield, or not at Smithfield, I'm sorry, at Poquoson as an assistant and a head coach?
My first year as an assistant was 1995, and then I became the head coach when Coach Ward retired in 2006. So I guess this is my 12th year, 13th year.
Wow.
Wow, it's been a great run for you there at Poquoson, trying to win another championship before we let you run, Coach, too. Tell us about, your team coming off those back-to-back losses to end the regular season. Some teams would go into the playoffs not feeling well, but I get the sense you had some injuries, guys dinged up, and you were there last year, I think, playing those same teams in Lafayette, York. Your defense played great in those games, giving up just 13 points to each, and both can put some points on the board against most of the foes they see. So it's just a matter of just sharpening execution and keeping them upbeat?
Definitely. Keeping them in the right frame of mind, staying positive with them, just getting those guys back healthy and working on the fundamentals and continue to tackle well. The last 2 weeks we've tackled real well in the secondary. So just got to keep sharpening those skills and get ready for Friday.
And lastly, from me, and Lynn may add something. Lynn can comment on this too because he's covered the Peninsula and Bay Rivers for many years. The Daily Press, for years the Bay Rivers was kind of thought of not on that same level of the Peninsula. And in some eyes, I think they've almost passed or definitely equaled the Peninsula in many of the top programs. You being a veteran now, on the coaching standpoint, getting some of the reputation around the state from people that the Bay Rivers plays some really good football. What does it do for your kids from a confidence standpoint, and also from college coaches? They try to get some of these players for the next level, seeing that these guys can play.
Yeah, I think it does. Our district's very competitive. When you can go week to week playing against the Yorks and the Smithfields and the War Hills, the War Hill program has really gotten good. So our kids know when they go out and compete on Friday night and they can compete with those guys, the big Class 4 schools, and hang with them and do well against them. So we know come playoff time, we're going to be ready. We're going to be battle tested. We're going to be know what to do in certain situations, know how to finish a game. So our guys are just ready. They're prepared.
Well, another excellent playoff run for Coach Elliott Duty and the Poquoson Islanders. 3 wins away from a state championship, and one more win gives them a region title as they take on Goochland coming up on Thanksgiving weekend as Poquoson takes on an undefeated team. Should be a great battle. Coach, thank you so much for the time. Congrats on the season so far, and we wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you very much.
You got it. That is Coach Elliott Duty with us here on ESPN Radio 94.1. It's Poquoson Islanders at 9-3 overall. Lynn getting ready to play the Goochland Bulldogs in the Class 2 Region A Championship. Last year it was Poquoson defeating Goochland by a count of 21-10 before losing that 27-24 heartbreaker to Lee. And their defense is just rock solid. Nothing flashy about them. They value substance over style there at Poquoson.
You know, as long as I've been watching Poquoson football, back to, like he said, Coach Ward, Don Ward, the old Poquoson running back from the 50s was the head coach there for such a long time. That's the way it's been. They grind it out both on offense and defense. You know, I'm probably misspeaking, but they haven't had a 300-yard passing game. They've had several 300-yard rushing games. They just sit there, put the ball in the running back's hands, and like he says, they don't really focus on one back. You know, they've had in the past guys like John Bell and Josh Zeidenberg who had great season totals, but now it's more running back by committee, to use a cliche, and it's just a very, very solid team, solid program, and great community support.
Very true. They come out and support their football team, and they got some all-state candidates for sure on that team with Hunter Schmidt and Max Baird and Colton Hicks, as he mentioned. And if they just get efficient play out of the quarterback, which they've been getting here lately from Stephen Parker. You don't have to throw for those glossy numbers. Just be efficient, manage the game well, don't turn it over. I think they got a great chance to beat Goochland and go further. Only thing is that Region 2B team could be the best region. I know Robert E. Lee got to the state final last year with a very dynamic quarterback in Jaden Williams, but the way East Rockingham and Central Woodstock are piling up points, that could be a challenge for their secondary against one of those teams that can hit you through the air and on the ground.
You really could, but it's always interesting when you get to that level is you don't know what people from the other side of the state really are like.
Very true.
So until you actually get out there on the field and start banging up against each other.
Well, you mentioned the banging. I think up front is where Poquoson will have an advantage against most anyone they will see. Probably barring, we'll give Appomattox 3-time reigning state champs the benefit of the doubt. They won last night, by the way. Appomattox did. 3-time defending state champs in Class 2 Region C. A tough one, 24-21 over Glenver. No luck over there, Thomas. You're just going to be doing that all day long, it looks like. That's another story for another time. And you got Ridgeview, Richlands, Graham, and Union out there. Graham's got a tremendous talent in Cameron Allen, quarterback for them, who's committed to Purdue as a defensive back. Appomattox, though, getting this far, Lynn, with a freshman quarterback in Trey Long. So think about that. 3-time defending state champs. They win a state title with a freshman quarterback. It's going to be hard to beat Appomattox for years to come, isn't it?
Boy, oh boy. Just think about the pressure on that young man. Teams won 3 straight state championships. You're probably a 14-year-old freshman. All of a sudden, you're the quarterback of the state champions.
Yeah, that is that's some tough. How do you deal with that? And Class 2, it's one of those. I think we started the year that even though Appomattox was coming off 3 straight state titles, we were looking at the bracket saying this is as wide open as any when we did our preseason top 10, and most of the teams we had in that are still in that pecking order of the likes of Appomattox and. Glenver went down, but East Rockingham, I think we had them 2 or 3 in the preseason. Poquoson was highly ranked. You got Ridgeview's a program on the rise with a lot of talent. So certainly some fun stuff there. One more segment on this edition of High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com with Lynn Burke. I'm Matt Hatfield. Give us a call at 757-687-9494, 757-687-9494. It's open talk this last segment. We got some odds and ends, including some high school football state playoff look when we come back right here on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Recapping another busy week of prep sports, it's High School Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1.
And Thomas, I am not the father, but Maury Povich is on TV making college football picks with Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Reese Davis, and the gang. Lynn, you are not the father either, are you?
No.
Okay. 757-687-9494 here on High School Sports Talk, talking some high school football playoff action with you. Let's go to the phones and chat with Dean in Norfolk. Dean, you're on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Thank you so much, Matt, for taking the call. Love your show.
Appreciate it.
I want to start out with a shameless plug. Got a minute.
Okay.
I want to give a shout-out to the Lake Taylor Titans. My son, Keontae Welch, number 8, defensive tackle. They had an awesome game last night. Looking forward to the game against Lafayette. It's going to be a tough one, but I think Lake Taylor can do it. And speaking of that, it's going to be some awesome games next week. You got Maury in the River. You got Lake Taylor and Lafayette. You got Norcom and Phoebus. Oh man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited about the playoffs, and I love you so. Start listening to the show with my son, guys, in the 9th grade in Lake Taylor, and I just absolutely love your show and your input and the guests you have on. Y'all do an awesome job.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Dean. Yep, and you should be proud of your son, Keontae Welch. As I look at the stats, having a good year from what I see statistically. 38 tackles, 13 stops for loss, and 2 sacks for number 8, Keontae Welch. One of the many good defenders they have, along with Corey Holloway, Akeem Wright, Tavion Copeland. Those were the 3 headliners with the sacks last night, having 10 of those. Raphael Bird there. You got Malik Newton also playing some linebacker. Dallas Sproul. You got Javon Harvey at defensive back. So many contributors. Also, Tyreek Tucker, younger brother of Diamante Tucker Dorsey, who plays at James Madison, along with Wayne Davis there. Just, again, 2 fabulous programs, Lynn, with Lake Taylor Lafayette. Players that get prepared for the next level. They've got players that have excelled at the next level. I mean, you think of we were watching on game day. Pittsburgh's playing Wake Forest today. Comes to mind right away. Chayton Pine played quarterback and linebacker for Lafayette. He's now at Pittsburgh. I mean, you look on TV, you see with Lake Taylor having Jalen Holmes with the Minnesota Vikings and Mike Tyson with the Houston Texans, now leading the AFC South. These are 2 outstanding programs. And I know some people in Class 6 and Class 5 are saying, why do you spend so much time on this game? Because really, when you get matchups of these caliber, I don't care what level you're playing. You could be playing in Class 1 for all I care. This is a state championship level matchup that you're getting in a regional final. And it goes further to my point, which I'll probably be complaining about next week, should we get it, of why do we have Indian River potentially playing Highland Springs in the state semis, not the state finals? And Maury, of course, is saying, hold on, Matt, you just advanced Indian River past us. And Maury's a good football team. They got a shot in that game. They're here for a reason. They got talent. 3 McCain's teams been putting up points. Their defense has been playing much better. I'm not discounting them, but I would like to see it, Lynn, where when you get to the Final 8 or Final 4, let's just reseed them, right? Mm-hmm. What's wrong with reseeding them? What is wrong with reseeding them?
Nothing.
Okay.
Except they have fixed brackets, and that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been, probably all the way it will be.
Unfix them. We can unfix those brackets. We don't need them fixed in advance. I mean, I know that there's been a push from higher ups, the Virginia High School League, to have one from the East, one from the West, or one from the North, one from the South. But don't you want to see the 2 best teams in the state finals? That's
Absolutely.
what I do. And I think in Class 5, my opinion's been, since Indian River beat Oscar Smith, that the 2 best teams are Highland Springs and Indian River. We've been talking about that matchup so much. What about if we get an Oscar Smith Manchester or an Ocean Lakes Manchester? Coach Joe Jones and Tom Hall are very good friends. They had a preseason scrimmage back in August. It was hot as can be out there. I was there for that one in August when they scrimmaged. Manchester, Lynn, is outscoring its opponents this year 60-4 per game. 60-4. They played Thomas Dale today. Winner there gets Colonial Forge, who's kind of had Manchester's number lately. And Colonial Forge, as much as we were hyping them last year and they were number 1 in the state for almost the whole season until losing in double overtime to Oscar Smith with that double-digit lead evaporating in the second half against the Tigers at home, they've quietly put together an 11-0 season with a new coach in John Brown, the son of former head coach, Hall of Famer Bill Brown, who stayed on as the defensive guru/coordinator for them. They're quietly sitting there, Colonial Forge, not being talked about as much as Westfield, Oscar Smith, Manchester. They probably like it that way.
Oh, absolutely. All of a sudden, they won't sneak up on people that know, but to the people who maybe don't know, they'll think, well, maybe they're not all as good as some of the other schools that are going to find out, yeah, they are.
Well, in a crazy way, Oscar Smith's had their number, but they might be the more dangerous matchup for an Oscar Smith should they advance than a Manchester. You say, well, Manchester's beating people 64, but Oscar Smith gets up for big games. And you talk about if we get Oscar Smith, Manchester, how about these 2 quarterbacks? Auburn commit. You'd have an Auburn commit against a Notre Dame commit. Cam Kelly, who now has, I believe, 29 touchdowns to 2 intercepts, and Manchester's Brendan Clark, who's got 28 touchdowns to no intercepts. That's as darn good a quarterback matchup as you can find.
It's a great quarterback matchup if it comes to that.
And Cam's not even just your pure quarterback. He's more of a defensive back and has played wide receiver, running back before, but he's certainly excelled at the QB spot. So just some great matchups. If you look across the state landscape, Lynn, at some of these other brackets here in Class 6, you got Westfield Madison in the Region 6D final. Semifinals today in Region 6C with Hatfield and Freedom, the 3 versus the 2. Freedom's the 2, Hayfield's the 3. W.T. Woodson, the number 1 seed, taking on South County, the number 4 seed. What's ironic to me about that matchup is those two schools, the last 2 state champions in boys basketball. South County winning last year, W.T. Woodson winning it the year before. South County will try to spring the upset there of the top-seeded Cavaliers of W.T. Woodson. Colonial Forge awaits the winner of Thomasdale Manchester and Ocean Lakes Oscar Smith. Really no Cinderella team left in Class 6.
No, I think you get to this point, the pretenders are all gone. Now you've just, the cliche again, you've got the contenders out there.
So who gets Highland Springs next week? We know Indian River's playing Maury, who outlasted Salem yesterday 31-28. Indian River beating Nansman 20-8. In Region 5B, Highland Springs had a tough one with Glen Allen 51-6. Not really. 4 special teams touchdowns on kick and punt returns, which is amazing. Henrico beating LC Bird 21-7. We know about their great basketball matchups in years past. Henrico winning that game without quarterback Jalen Jones, who was ejected the week before against Verina. He is a Florida Gators commit. Is the ejection rule 1 or 2 games? I'm not really sure. I thought it was 2.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, you weren't sure either. Well, whether he plays or not, I think Highland Springs is equipped to win that game. They won the regular season matchup when they played about a month or so ago pretty comfortably. But without Jalen Jones, I give them less than a 5% chance. With them, it's probably less than a 10% chance of winning that game, as they beat them back in September. It was 40-6. Northern Virginia, you got Broad Run playing Stonebridge. Broad Run doubled up Tuscarora, who lost in the state finals last year to Highland Springs. Broad Run winning that game over Tuscarora last night 28-14. And what about what Stonebridge did to Falls Church? 69-0. And do you realize this Falls Church now team is no slouch? They started the year 0-4, and then Lynn reeled off 7 straight wins. And the running back for Falls Church, DeQuandre Marshall, coming into last night, had 2,680 yards rushing and 43 touchdowns. But Stonebridge shut him and the Jaguars down.
Oh, people down here, especially the Phoebus fans, are familiar with Stonebridge from years past, a couple of pretty classic games that they played against each other.
And they had a close one to end the regular season when they lost to Broad Run, trying to get revenge against a Broad Run team that has a Wake Forest commit at quarterback in junior Mitch Griffiths and a Michigan commit at running back in junior Tim Baldwin. Yes, junior, so they could be back for state runs for 2 years. Massaponax will play the winner of today's Mountain View North Stafford game. North Stafford, the number 2 seed. And a fan of North Stafford is our own Thomas Simmons, because they have running back Devin Ford, a Penn State commit, the 5-star, trying to lead North Stafford past Massaponax, who beat them earlier this year, but they got to get past Mountain View today. In Class 4, you got Lafayette Lake Taylor. You have Eastern View Dinwiddie. If you didn't see that Eastern View play, go see the ESPN Radio 941 Twitter account. We have it. It's a great one. They've got Dinwiddie, who beat Monacan 38-32. You got Sharando awaiting the winner of Loudoun County Woodgrove, I believe it is. Sharando's quarterbacked Lynn by a guy's grandfather you know. Quarterback is Hunter Ensminger. He's a JMU baseball signee. His granddad, Mark Mosley, who played for the Washington Redskins.
Absolutely.
So that could be fun. Blacksburg awaits the winner of Jefferson Forest EC Glass in 4D. We would give you 3, 2, and 1, but that music means we're out of time, so we can't. Which means you have to go to VirginiaPreps.com to see the brackets and more playoff talk, playoff write-ups. We've got it all for you. Lynn, this was fun. We'll have to do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Well, next time Ed's gone, I'll be back.
Well, he's selling alarms according to Willie Gauze, so it might be, that could be a while for him. We thank all our guests, including Pecoson's Elliott Duty, as well as Ocean Lakes Joe Jones, the coach of the Dolphins, Cameron Williams, the linebacker from Ocean Lakes, and Willie Gauze of Kickotan. I'm Matt Hatfield. He's Lynn Burke. Thank you, Thomas Simmons. We'll talk to you next Saturday, a couple days after Turkey Day, right here on your home for sports, College Pro High School. We've got it on ESPN Radio 94.1.